Hello, Spartan Time. Today we are going to talk about the relationship bank account, which is a concept that is written about in a book titled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, written by Sean Covey. So as we're talking about relationships, here at LC Middle School we are a community, and a community is full of relationships. So my question to you is, teachers, I'd like you to pause the video for a few minutes and as a group discuss this question. What is a community? A community isn't a place or a building. I know we have a brand new, beautiful building. Some of you may know exactly where everything is, and some may still be struggling a little bit, and that's okay. But a community is not where we are. Simply speaking, a community is a group of people that care about each other and feel they belong. So 3 key concepts here. 1, human, a group of people. Here at our middle school, we have 7th and 8th grade students and our staff, your parents, and our outside community, meaning businesses and other people surrounding that. Second is relationships, that we care about each other. And throughout this presentation, we're going to be talking about what makes a good relationship, how we build them, and how we repair them. And then 3, that feeling of belonging, that shared identity. And we will go into that in a little bit of detail as well. So as we're thinking about this relationship piece, I want you to think of all the relationships that you have. Think about the people, who they are, and all the different types. When we think about types, you might think of student-to-student relationships. This would be your peers, people in your grades, or maybe a little bit older or younger. You might think of your parents or your guardians. Relationships with a coach if you're in athletics, or maybe music, band. You might think of your siblings, the relationships that you have with them, and teacher-student relationships. And the list could go on and on. The question is, what's it like to be in a relationship with you? How would you rate yourself? How are your relationships with your friends? How are your relationships with your siblings, if you have siblings, with your parents or guardians, and your teachers? And on this scale, we have it rated from 1 to 5, 1 being like, my relationship with my friends is lousy, or 5, my relationship with my friends is absolutely excellent. So I'd like you, with a scrap piece of paper, to rate yourself. So teachers, you'll need to pause the video for just a couple minutes and give the students an opportunity to really self-reflect. Students, I want you to really think about, how are these relationships that you have with people? Are they good? Are they in the middle? Are they excellent? And rate where you are. This is no judgment. We all have different relationships with different people. Obviously, some friends you might have better relationships with other friends, and that's okay. But overall, what would you rate yourself with those people? Maybe just pick one friend or one sibling, a parent or guardian, and overall, your teachers. So, after you self-reflected and rated yourself, maybe you're doing pretty well, maybe not. But either way, hopefully after this presentation, you will learn some different strategies that will help you improve some of these key relationships that we are talking about. So when we're talking about relationships, the concept of the relationship bank account is a concept that Sean Covey talks about in his 7 Habits book. And it's a really practical way to think about the relationships that we have. What is a relationship bank account? Really, it's the amount of trust and confidence that you have in your relationship. So kind of that rating scale, right? The amount of trust, the amount of confidence you have in your relationship. So a relationship bank account is very similar to a checking account. Some of you might have a checking account, I'm not sure. But even if you don't, I'm sure you understand the concept of a checking account. In a checking account, you put money into the bank. When you put money into the bank, it is called a deposit. And the more deposits, the more money you put in the bank, the more you deposit into the bank, the more money that you have. And then at times you see, oh, this great video game, and you're like, I want to buy that. So you take money out. And what that is called is a withdrawal. And you withdraw money from your bank account, and there is now less money in your bank account. And you never want to overdraw your account. So a relationship bank account is similar to a checking account in many ways, except for three different ways that it is different. We're going to talk about those. So number one, in a bank, you usually only have maybe one or two accounts. Some people might have more, but for the most part, people have one or two bank accounts. But in a relationship bank account, you have an account with everyone you meet. I know, that sounds crazy. You're like, what? How do I have an account with everyone I meet? You do. Let me give you an example. Suppose a new kid comes to school. You see him in the hallway. If you smile and you say hello, you have just opened an account with that new person. If you ignore him, you've just opened an account as well, although this is a negative one. There's just no getting around it. Number two, unlike a checking account, once you open an RBA with another person, you can never close it. That's why you can run into a friend that you haven't seen in years and pick up right where you left off. Not a dollar is lost. It is also why people hang on to grudges for so many years, which is the very unfortunate part of not being able to close the bank account. Number three is in a checking account, $10 is $10. In a relationship bank account, deposits that you put into the account tend to evaporate, and withdrawals tend to turn to stone. This means that you need to continually make small deposits into your most important relationships just to keep them in the positive. Think about it. Around and thinking, Mr. Hoyska has not given me a compliment in a really long time. I'm really frustrated with him. So I go to Mr. Hoyska and I say, hey, what's up? You haven't been saying anything nice to me. No compliments. What's going on? And he says to me, well, come on. I told you you look nice last Christmas. Not going to work in our relationship, right? Deposits evaporate, and you have to continually make deposits into your relationship just to keep them in positive. So when we talk about building them, I kind of talked about it there a little bit, is making deposits. And then at times we are going to have to figure out how we repair these broken relationships. It's pretty simple though. We build them one deposit at a time, and we repair them one deposit at a time. Unfortunately, there is no quick fix. If you are $500 in the hole with your friends, then you need to make 501 worth of deposits with that friend to get back into the positive. So when you think about deposits with your friends or with parents or with teachers, what do you think of? What is a deposit? What is a deposit for you? There are 6 key deposits that work every time. So there are tons and tons of deposits out there, but these 6 tend to be true and work every single time. And they are keeping promises, doing small acts of kindness, being loyal, listening, saying you're sorry, and setting clear expectations. And just like with every deposit, there is, of course, and opposite withdrawal. So some of these might stand out to you. Oof, I'm really good at keeping promises. Or, I'm not such a good listener. The key is trying to figure out, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where can I improve? And maybe it's one of these deposits or withdrawals that you're doing that is really breaking some of your relationships. So as we break it down and we look at some of these deposits, they're pretty self-explanatory, but I always think that giving a little bit more information is always helpful. So when we talk about keeping promises, it is simple. It's basically doing what you say you are going to do. So if you tell your mom you're going to be home at 9:30 or that you're going to do the dishes, do it. Give out promises sparingly and then do everything you can to keep them. Small acts of kindness. I know this, I hear this all the time. I go past classrooms and I see posters talking about be the good in the world. This is so important. And if you want to build relationships with people, try doing the little things. Because in relationships, the little things are really the big things that make a huge impact. Being loyal. This is difficult in middle school. It can be done, but it can be difficult. Loyal people keep secrets. They avoid gossip, and they stick up for others. Who could you be more loyal to? Listening. The single most important communication skill you can ever learn is how to listen. And real listening doesn't mean you are silent. It means that you are actively trying to understand another human being. Most people do not listen very well. And as the result, one of the greatest frustrations in life is that we don't feel understood. Many times I hear students, teenagers, and they're like, you just don't understand. And really the key is we need to listen. Saying you're sorry. This can be difficult for many people, but it's so important that we don't let our pride or lack of courage stand in the way of admitting when we're wrong and saying sorry to people that we have offended. It is never as scary as it seems, and I can tell you, it will make you feel so good after you apologize. Setting clear expectations. This is so important to build trust through telling it like it is. Just tell it like it is. And lay out clear expectations right up front. It is so important that we are not vague or imply something that's not true or not likely to happen. And I think that this is a very difficult one for people because many times we want to please people. And so we kind of say what they want to hear in the moment because we don't want to let them down. But in the long run, it really makes a very negative withdrawal from that person and that bank account. So remember, we're a community, right? And the last part that we haven't talked about is that identity. And our identity is as Spartans. You belong here. We are Spartans. What does it mean to be a Spartan? What does it mean to be a Spartan? Pause the video for just a second, and I want you guys to talk about what does it mean to be a Spartan. So these are the basic things that I hope were brought up. I'm sure there was a lot of great conversation, but one of them is we are responsible, we are respectful, we are safe. And those are some main key attributes to being a Spartan. And last, we take care of ourselves, each other, and this place. To be a Spartan, we need to take care of each other. We need to take care of this place. And most importantly, we need to take care of ourselves. So, what happens when you mess up? You harm your relationships and your community. That's what happens. It's not about breaking a rule or you shouldn't have done that. Really what it boils down to is when you don't do what's expected, you harm your relationships and you harm our school. What needs to be done then? That's the key question. Repair the harm and make deposits. Talk about the process of repairing the harm, as it truly is a process. Remember, repairing the harm means that an offense has been made, meaning that a student was not being responsible, respectful, or safe toward either themselves, others, or this place, meaning our school. This chart may look overwhelming. However, we will go through each box step by step to ensure everyone understands this process and is able to repair harm when needed. We'll start with the first maroon box. This box is all about teachers making deposits into the lives of their students. Believe it or not, but teachers are constantly making deposits into your bank account, trying to build relationships with you. They do all of this in many ways, but these are some key ways they do so. Setting clear behavioral expectations. What that means is those expectations that we talked about at the beginning of school, how we behave in the hall, how we behave in the bathroom, at recess, in our classrooms. We do this to make sure that everybody is on the same page and all our expectations are clear and students know what to expect and how to behave. As you remember, when we talked about the RBA, clear expectations are key to building relationships. Teachers are also constantly praising students and looking for opportunities to acknowledge them, either individually, classroom, or school-wide, to look for the good in our community and what you kids are doing. Teachers are also listening and asking questions of their students to better understand them, to know their perspective, and really get to the heart of what they might be struggling with, what their fears might be, and just how they can better help. And finally, teachers admit when they make mistakes. Teachers understand that we are all human. They realize that they're going to mess up, that I'm going to mess up, that you're going to mess up. The key really is what happens when we mess up and when we're not safe, responsible, or respectful. As we discussed earlier, when you mess up, it is more than just breaking a rule or an expectation. It is actually an offense against people and our community. Some offenses and withdrawals are minor and some are major. We're going to talk about minor offenses or minor withdrawals. An example of a minor offense might be talking during a classroom lesson. If someone is doing that, a teacher will respond with assertive strategies to remind, redirect, or reteach the student with the intention to return back to teaching as quickly as possible. But remember, it is their intention to help that student and the class feel safe. It is their intention to help needs be met. This is not to catch someone doing something wrong. Hopefully, with the redirection and reminders and reteaching, the student will be able to improve their behavior. However, if it continues, the teachers will again respond with assertive strategies to teach and guide students to repair the harm that they are causing. What harm is being caused? Well, think about it.
The teacher is being impacted because he or she has put a lot of effort into preparing the lesson and has the responsibility to teach the entire class. The other students and the student misbehaving is being impacted because the learning is being disrupted. So, teachers will work with the offending student to come up with a plan or consequences to help the student make things right with the people that are being impacted by their behavior. An example of this might be that the student and teacher decide that a seating change would help remedy the situation. Secondly, a parent and guardian contact is crucial. Parents are there to support students when they struggle. This is not to get you in trouble, but it is to help everyone be on the same page to help support the students, which will help our community. 3, this behavior will be documented in the school discipline system to help with future problems if they were to arise again. Next, we'll discuss if a student has a major offense or a major withdrawal. This means major harm has been caused, and it is a serious offense against people, relationships, or our school specifically. Since the incident is major, the greater probability that more people have been impacted by these behaviors and choices is greatly happened. In this moment, more than ever, support is needed, hence the need to get the principal involved, and an office visit is imperative. First, the student will meet with the principal to identify the harm caused and to whom or what. Students will then consider how their behavior has affected others. Third, a plan to repair the harm is imperative. This plan will be created by the student with the help of the principal and possibly others who were impacted by the behavior. It is the student's responsibility to carry out that plan to repair the harm caused. Finally, the student and the teacher and the principal and possibly others impacted will follow up to make sure the situation has been remedied and begin moving forward in a positive way. This is where the RBA comes in, making deposits back into the lives of our communities. Teachers do not want to hold it over your head forever or hold a grudge. They want to move forward. Finally, we have a behavior threshold. What this means is that after a student has accumulated multiple minors or majors, we all need to get together, parents, teachers, counselor, principal, and most importantly, the student, to figure out how to fix this problem and solve it together. Quick review. You have an account, a relationship bank account with everyone you meet. You make deposits to build relationships. We're all going to mess up, but the key thing is how we're going to make it right. And after we make it right, begin building those deposits back into our relationships again. So, personal challenge. Pick one relationship in your life that maybe needs some repair and brainstorm this week how you can rebuild that relationship by using the deposits we talked about. Have a great week.